Here we have our Linocut, a piece of paper, lino cutter, and a pencil to start. The first thing you're going to do is take your Linocut and trace it onto a piece of paper. Once you have your Linocut shape traced, then you can apply your drawing to that piece of paper. As I'm doing this drawing, I'm thinking about how am I going to be carving out all of these different elements. So I'm drawing these lines, but I have to consider, am I going to be able to carve out around them? Am I going to be carving out on top of them? So things to consider as you're starting to plan for your Linocut, which I'll give you a few tips for as we move on. Once I'm finished my drawing, I can take my Linocut. I'm looking for the side that is a little bit less shiny, more matte. And I'm going to place that Linocut on top of my paper, flip it over, and then I'm going to rub that paper to transfer the drawing from the pencil onto the Linocut. So next I'm going to be using my lino cutter. The gouges, or the cutters is what I call them, are often found in the back of it. So you'll just unscrew that. And by looking at them, you'll find different shapes and sizes. The sizes are numbered on the back, and it just associates with the size of the blade. So while I'm not using them, I'm going to put them back into the back so I don't lose any. You can unscrew this top portion, and inside are two different parts. One is rounded and the other one has sort of a C shape, and they both align top and bottom. So you make sure those two are always inside that top sort of collar piece. And the rounded side goes at the top of the collar. So that sits in there. Then once you have that, then it goes and gets screwed back onto the lino cutter. Then you take your blade or your cutter, and it goes with the sort of rounded end into that, next to that C shape. You tighten by twisting it. So I have my cutter of choice, and what I'm going to start to do is make sure that I never carve towards my hand. So I always have my hands behind my cutter, holding it in the palm of my hand and pushing away, again protecting my hands, and scooping out that linoleum as I go and turning my wrist to sort of follow those shapes. So it's important here to note that I've chosen sort of a medium-sized blade, and you want to choose an appropriate blade for the areas that you're carving out. One quick little tip that I forgot to do before starting was I like to take a Sharpie to my design to thicken all of the lines that I've done in pencil and to color in the areas that I'm going to leave behind, so I'm not going to carve out. This tool, this marker, will come in handy a bit later on to see what our print might look like before we actually add ink to it. So this marker is a great tool because once I've carved out certain sections and I want to see how they'll look when I print it, or I just want to see how much I've carved away or if certain sections are deep enough, I can take it and I can actually color over that area and see what it might look like as it's printed. Once I'm happy with how my print looks, I'm going to get out a plate for ink, a brayer to roll that ink, and then the ink itself. I put about a teaspoon amount of ink onto my plate, and I'm going to take my brayer and I start to roll it out onto my plate, going both directions. I'm going both directions so that I get an even amount of ink all the way across my brayer, and you can see it start to distribute itself over the brayer. And once it's got an even coverage, then I'm going to roll it onto my Linocut. I like to change directions when I'm rolling ink onto my Linocut so I get a nice even coverage. When I'm ready to print, I grab a piece of paper, I square it up, get rid of all the extra pieces in there before printing obviously, and place that Linocut on a piece of paper face down. I flip it over, and then you can use your fingers or the back of a spoon and you gently rub the whole print so that the ink transfers onto your piece of paper. Making sure you're holding onto your paper and your print so nothing shifts around so you don't get too many smudges. Once you're happy with the amount of pressure, slowly peel it back to reveal your printed image. Looks pretty good. So just remember that your print will have a mirrored image of your Linocut. Oh, and try not to smudge it. Not to worry, if you get any smudges or your print isn't straight, you can always print another by just rolling more ink onto it and printing it onto another piece of paper. Finally, cleanup is the most important part. So if you're done with your Linocut for the day, you can take a scrub brush and just scrub it clean with some water until the water runs clear. And then again, use water and a scrub brush to rinse off the rest of your tools.